as Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by Tyree.
Welcome to Catch the Moment Podcast. I am your host, David Tyree. Super excited to be back with you for another dope episode. This time I got a close friend of mine, major acquaintance. He is a Green Beret, owner of Between the Ears Fitness. And I'm going to be honest with you, he's going to deliver a whole lot more value other than how you can be strong in your next journey in life. Bill Anthes, appreciate you for checking in.
David, thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate it.
Listen,
excited
man,
to be here.
this is a move. So obviously we met a couple years ago. We become business owners in Morristown.
Yeah.
And your wife, hold on, I gotta get this right. So I'm gonna fail. Cariana.
Yeah.
Cariana.
Yeah.
Cariana.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Right. So and your wife she's been a staple in the business community in Morristown.
Yeah.
So, this was just, this is always the meeting place, athletics and military. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have a bunch of good dialogue. But first, bro, before I kind of like get into the meat of the matter.
Yeah.
We always start off, and this is catch the moment. So we got to take you back to the moment, the helmet catch. So we bring you in. Where were you when you saw the helmet catch, and what were your thoughts? What was your experience? Paint the picture for me.
I remember. It's one of those moments that actually I don't remember physically where I was, but I remember asking everybody who I was with.
Yeah.
Did that actually just happen? Did they cut the commercial?
Yeah.
CGI stuff? Did that happen? And
You sound like you had an out-of-body experience.
it was something that, no one ever saw that before.
Yeah.
When the first time you see or experience anything for truly the first time,
Yeah.
I think there's a natural element of wait, what? And so, I vividly remember just everyone kind of froze. It was like,
Now, were you in the military at that time? Were you out of the military?
No,
That's 2008.
2008, I was out of the military. I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So out of the military, meaning I didn't go in yet. Pre-military.
That was pre-military.
Post-college, pre-military. I went in 2010. So, wherever I...
Okay, so we're gonna get the timeline, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you was out there in the workforce. Boom.
For a brief couple busy seasons, realizing real quick that
wasn't it.
Not it. No.
All right, so you got a lot of regimented disciplines that you've been a part of. So you have athletic background, military background. Obviously you're a coach, trainer. Still to this day, we're going to talk. I can't wait to talk about BTE and the comprehensive nature of services that you guys provide. And I guess you could say within the fitness health industry. But what about your mindset has kind of put you in these environments? And just tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how, whether it was athletics that kind of spawned you on into these disciplines where it was about a mindset.
Anything that involves the body just is a direct access to something deeper. And for me, that's always been this sense of self. We call it the who. The athletic pursuit. So I played soccer, played in college, was a All-American at Montclair State.
Okay, represent. Okay,
I gotta keep D3 on the. I gotta keep D3 on the map.
D3 on the map. Montclair State. It's not Montclair High School. Montclair State is in
down the road. We're down the road. We're keeping it close. Keeping it close.
That's dope.
For me, that was where I found a tremendous amount of peace and purpose.
Yeah.
And the body was involved. There was team, so there was meaning to what we were doing.
Sure.
And there was belonging in that I'm with other people. You put a jersey on and over your heart it says MSU or whatever your club is. It doesn't say your first name.
Yeah.
Fast forward to go into the Army, same thing. You wear US Army over your heart. Your name is on the other side.
Sure.
And so these pursuits, these endeavors that challenge us to not they challenge us to find out really who are we? Who are we? Who do we want to become? What's that journey like?
Yeah.
Like you speak about the process to get there.
Sure.
And so, athletics really provided the convenient excuse to go find out a little bit more about who you are.
Now, Now, what town? Like, you're originally from Jersey, Montclair
Yeah.
State. All right. So what part of Jersey are you from? And basically, what was like, what was the catalyst even that connected you to sport? What about sport? Was it something always about you that had a competitive drive, or did you just kind of like find your way, slip into it?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Cranford, so Union County, so
Okay,
not too
represent.
far. Yeah, not too far down the road from Montclair. Was the middle of 3 kids, middle of 3 boys, older brother.
Middle kid.
Yeah, middle child all the way through. And, I don't even really remember. My dad and mom put me into soccer. My older brother had done soccer and a bunch of different things. I actually wanted to quit my first day. Like, I sat down in the field and was crying. I'm like, Dad, I don't like this. And that whole bit. And, of course, that wasn't really part of the equation. And then, it was just, I just took to it. Don't really know why, had no clicking point. But I do remember thinking that I actually didn't want to be a better soccer player. I wanted to be like more of a commando. And that was just, I think, part of my archetype, part of my nature. And I thought to myself, like, hey, if I can be like one of those dudes, and at the time it was only men allowed, if I could be like one of them, then between the lines, I'd probably benefit from it.
Be a dog out there.
And that was it. And so what made them special? What made them unique? Well, it was sort of this warrior samurai ninja thing of like, they're going to win the battle before they even draw the sword. And how are they going to do that? They're going to do that with their mind. They're going to do that with self-control.
Okay.
And I kind of just took to that, reading as much as I could about it, and not really knowing what I was reading at the time. But
so internally, even at a young age, you were connecting to a true sense of purpose. Even beyond the sport, whereas most people it might be about glory, but for you it's a little bit more about significance.
I would agree.
Yeah. That's actually amazing, because I was probably quite the opposite as an athlete. Of course, football is the glory sport of the country,
right?
And that was all about the glory, bro.
Yeah.
No, but that's super dope. Okay, so obviously you spin it. You have an all America is no matter where you go, means you got to be good. So obviously. Something clearly clicked, once you created that D3 opportunity, and that mindset that we're talking about. Talk to me in general about your practices and basically like, okay, that's obviously what separates any kind of high performer. So, when you're thinking about whether you're going about your job, athletics, or anybody who's just this average Joe, what does it take to position yourself to do something extremely, notable on a high level? Like, what is the engagement level mentally from your experience?
For me, it was about authenticity and the opportunity with every single, whether it be practice, the off season, drills, whatever it might be, like being authentically you, the fullest you. Because when you better than most, in the heat of the moment, stress is high, pressure's up there. If you're faking it, you're done. You're not going to, fakers do not win at the highest levels.
No.
And that's what practice, training, off-season, reading, skill development, all of that is like, how do I become uniquely and fully me? Developing this kind of this sense of self. What better thing to do that than athletics, where if you're the best on the field, you got to find a different field. If you think you're better than your teammates, you're the worst teammate there is. If, none of us perform well in isolation.
That's good.
So I was an All-American. I was only an All-American though because I had a good team.
It's good.
Good coaches. People came before me that the program was okay.
Yeah.
But they still put in the work. They laid the foundation for that, which me and then afterwards, and the programs continued to go on. And military is very much the same way. The people that came before us, I think need to remember who came before us, and we need to do something for the people who are going to come after us. And in an authentic and full way.
All right, this is fantastic because my word, and it's kind of similar. Like, transparency is not just about like laying all the terms on the table. I tell people authenticity and transparency are kind of like cousins, meaning like it's the ability to be seen, right? Where you allow people to see you in your authentic self. And I think the sooner that people can grasp and you know, we'll get into the demons that life, you know, and the challenges, the obstacles, because that's what every human really is birthed out of, right? It's like the phoenix, you know, metaphor in some respects. So what along the way, you know, and I'm gonna give you this one before I really talk about some of the adversity. You know, like I really respect the heck out of your journey, just the different pivots, but also the lessons learned. What would you call your defining moment at this stage in your life or career?
I mean, meeting my wife is, I'm going to say, the thing that changed the trajectory of my life for the better, thankfully.
That's awesome.
You know, prior to meeting her and how you kind of peel it back all the time, but and it's around this time, but September 11th was a huge catalyst of change for me as well. And, you know, I was a junior in high school, feeling a bit lost, just, you know, dealing with some stuff and whatever. And, you know, there was this moment of like, okay, this is now all of that stuff I read about samurais and warriors and all of this is actually now what I've got to do. But I didn't go right into the Army after high school. I delayed it. And you know, by delaying it, I went away from who I felt I needed to be, and I went towards who I thought others wanted me, needed me to be. I didn't want to be, you know, I didn't want to be a source of stress for others and this and that. And I got to a decision point where it's I either need to turn towards me or I need to turn away from me. And I've been turning away from me for a while. And that authenticity component required going through, hey, this is what it's going to be. So, you know, that was definitely a big part of it. And then meeting my wife, you know, 2 months before going into basic training, then realizing like, oh, there's this other, like, I thought my life was going this way. I meet her, and there's this entirely new life that just presented that I didn't do anything to control or frankly deserve. But you know, that was big. That was big.
Ooh, listen, I'm gonna tell you what, the power of a woman is so, and of course, even more so the right woman. You know, there's the saying that, you know, because of women, there's been wars because of women, right? Helen of Troy, right? The power and the persuasive power and impact of women in our society is super dynamic, right? But even more so when so you talk about this, you have obviously you discover this, for lack of better terms, I call it this calling at this point, is this beacon of truth and authenticity with yourself, and it's pointing toward that significance, that honor code. But you actually say it's meeting your wife. What did she help you to do or come to terms with? Or maybe what was it about her that really connected you to something higher?
It was entirely who she was and who she represented. Okay. And the other thing that's like, I think really I'm beyond grateful for is that there was, in my mind, there was never any chance of a romantic relationship. None. I was going in the Army. She was going through her stuff. She's a business owner in Morristown, has this thing, and this is 2010, CrossFit's on the boom. I'm trying to go into special operations where, you know, who knows when you're going to talk to me. So that never entered the equation. It was so pure. And what it allowed me to do, and I think both of us to do, is see each other as authentically, as transparent as possible. That window was clear. And it just was like, this is just a woman who is passionate, who is skilled, who is smart, who's obviously, I was attracted to her, yes, but in a sense, in a deeper sense, you know, for sure. Not just the external, but I was there was a magnetism to who this individual is within herself. And you know, that was just something that was a brand new experience. It's
fantastic, bro. So obviously this experience with Green Beret, and I don't want to talk as much about your experiences with Green Beret, but I think about knowing you and just some of the transparency and where your journey is taking you. What have been the pain points what was the furnace that you endured that allowed you to come to certain conclusions about yourself and how your journey was continuing to forward? Tell me some of that, some of that raw stuff, because I I've been out of my mind before. Like, I'm one of these dudes that's super sensitive to the realities of mental health, and it's a space that you're moved into yourself. I want you to talk about that. Yeah. But maybe internally, whether it was in high school, whether it was, transitioning out of the military, what was it, at what point was there maybe a collapse or a painful experience that was like, what am I, who am I? What did that look like for you?
Leaving the military was incredibly difficult. I chose to leave because I wanted to choose to be with my family. They were up in New Jersey, have a wife, 2 kids. I never really ever saw them. I'm not their biological dad, I'm their stepdad, but I never saw them. They're younger.
Yep.
My wife barely see her. She's basically a single mom, and they endured 5 years of what it is to be in special operations. And it was like, look, there's this other component to life that I want to live. I want to experience. And there's other humans at stake here. It's not just me. And so that was a tough decision because I was getting better at my job. Yeah. And as an athlete, as a performer, when you're like, hey, all right, now I'm starting. I saw before, now I'm understanding.
Yeah.
And you're developing.
It's slowing down. The game's slowing down for you.
Yeah, you start to feel like, okay, I'm not on the strings anipure. Now I'm kind of pulling them, and I was getting better, and there was different opportunities and stuff like that. And, I could still play, coach. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
heck yeah.
Trade the jersey, and I can still play. And so it's this loss of identity. It's who am I without this? And I thought I had a decent hedge against it.
Sure.
I went in at 25. I had a college degree, this and that, a little couple of work experience, blah, blah, blah. But what made me successful was I embodied that identity. And then all of a sudden they stamp your paper and they say, you're out of the Army now. And I was like, hold on a second. You know what just went into that piece of paper? Like, and what that paper means, and you just stamp it and say, off you go. Man. And then I got home. I drove home from Tennessee. That's where I was stationed and living. And I remember pulling up, knowing it was a one-way trip and thinking, I don't know if I want to be here. Like, did I just make a massive mistake?
Yeah.
I didn't unpack my bag for about 6 months. I left my beret out and in eyesight every time I crossed because I kind of had one foot in, one foot out. And that rebirth of self, very much in terms of this Phoenix-like approach, was, it sounds great. Like, oh, look, like rebirth. But something needs to burn and potentially die for that to happen. And that's certainly been part of the story.
Yeah. That's some real stuff. So when I'm thinking about sacrifice, especially with the armed services, and I mean, like, there's the sense of indebted of gratitude and debt that any civilian is definitely due and admirable. But we often talk about sacrifice on the side of the people that stay in, make the long-term commitments, and we don't talk about the other side of sacrifice. And in my personal estimation for the decision you made, it's extremely noble. So do you is that something that goes through your head when you're looking at it? It's like, of course you're battling internally whether you made the right decision, but in my mind, not only is it noble, it's higher in my estimation, but at the same time, the identity. So what was that? Do you feel like that's an overplayed narrative? Does the person who says, you know what, I need to prioritize my family, I need to get back, this is a high call for my country, but these people are depending on me and I've made a commitment. Is that something that you've ever considered, like the sacrifice on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people who sacrifice the most actually aren't the ones who are wearing the uniform. It's the family, and for a lot, it's the significant other, it's the spouse.
It's good.
Being in the Army, being in the military, it's a dream for a lot of people. Now, not everybody, but for me, it was a dream to do that. But who never really gets spoken about is the people that have to run the ship when I'm off doing the thing. And, so that goes for, spouses, kids, like the drain that has.
Yeah.
But, we have the uniform, we wear the uniform and we get a lot of the attention. And, for the Gold Star families, so that's somebody who's lost a family member to, in their military service. That's who I think about. I think about those Gold Star members, family members, spouses, significant others, sons, daughters, that, have to live the rest of their life with the sacrifice that whoever they were connected to, their family member had. And sometimes that's death.
Yeah, it's real.
Far more common though, it's just having someone who's not actually living. And that goes into the mental health stuff a lot.
Sure.
Because there's a lot that come home but never really return.
And never really come home.
And that was me for sure.
Man, that's powerful. So you said 6 months before you unpacked your bag.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit longer.
Listen, my life is so crazy. We came back from Florida. I think we still have our bag.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's just life with 7 kids and a few moving pieces. Definitely nothing like 5 years in special operations. All right, so I'm a military novice. So what is the Green Beret?
Yeah.
And what I've always heard of the Green Beret. It's clear that's y'all somebody. But what actually is that unit? And maybe to some degree, what is that responsible for? It's clear y'all some bad mofos. But what is that, what does that meant for you, obviously, participating in that group?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely those who are, there are some bad dudes. But, I do want to take this as a chance to also say, there's plenty of people who are not in special operations. Special operations is the all-star team. It's an all-pro team. That's what everybody does. That's what they write shows about. That's what all of that. But there's far more that are not in special operations that are some bad dudes and gals. So it's
some David Tyrees out there before the helmet catch. You know what I'm saying? There's some dudes that's just out there on the roster tearing it up.
For sure. And so, for as much as we're a culture that loves Hollywoodisms. And so it's special forces, this and that. There's plenty of dudes and gals who are not in a special operations unit that did far more badass stuff than me.
Yeah.
Full stop. For me to pretend that that's not the case, that's just not it. That being said, Green Berets, yes, there's definitely a lineage and a history and stuff like that.
I love the honor. And now back to the All-Star team.
So one of the things that makes the Green Berets and other special operations units unique and special is that there's a very arduous, long, high attrition rate selection process. And so, we're the Army Special Forces. That's the unit, that's the branch that we're a part of. And so we're tasked with unconventional warfare. That includes a bunch of different mission sets and whatnot. Sure. As an example, this time almost 21 years ago now, Green Berets along with CIA teams were the first on the ground in Afghanistan. Days after September 11, 2001. Now, we weren't there with large signatures.
No, I got you.
It was, hey, small groups, small teams making stuff happen. We're referred to as force multipliers and that kind of a thing. And so that's where some of the lineage is, and it goes back to Vietnam, where these I can't even imagine what they were doing. That whole thing. And so long selection processes. Certainly, some more higher speed trainings and stuff like that, more money, gear. And typically we're not going to answer the call for the easy problems. Not to say any problem in war is easy, but that's unconventional warfare. Warfare is kind of our
that's
our
the
bread and
whole
butter.
that's the whole purpose. That's the whole purpose of the wolf, right? The wolf from Pulp Fiction. To come and clean up the big mess.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I mean, like I said, it's sometimes we hear it and we don't really truly understand what that is. I know that I don't. It's well, they must be somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's typically what it evolves to.
Yeah.
All right, so the Special Forces, Green Beret, Special Teams, me and Bill, we've been doing this, all I did was run down on kickoff and run into 1,200 pounds of men, Yeah. I did, that's obviously what kind of created an opportunity. So I always think about you have to have a different mind to do certain things. So when you're considering military, special, even more so special forces, just in light of the attrition rate, sports like football, I tell you, it's really not for everybody, right?
Right.
And for whatever reason, I volunteered as a 195-pound wide receiver started running down on kickoff because I couldn't stand to be on the bench waiting for my opportunity.
Right.
And I was willing to do whatever it takes to make a play. So I have to ask this, just because I have to. I'm a civilian. Have you ever killed a man?
So,
not that this is a badge of honor, but I can only imagine. So what I think about is when you make a righteous kill, because I believe in something called a righteous kill. So that's a fun conversation of itself. Right. You make a righteous kill, doing your job, doing what's right, best that you know. But then your conscience still has to deal with blood was spilled. Right. So talk me through it. You can answer the question. No obligation, but at the end of the day, I can imagine that's part of it.
I'll answer it by saying that I lived my life in a head space and with a mind space and really a heart space of almost being obsessed with taking life. When you boil the military down, that's what we do. Everything supports this notion of taking life. And the better a military is at taking others and preserving theirs, they're going to win. Now, that can be a very good deterrent, which is typically why we don't get into these large scale wars. It's like, oh no, let's put the helmet on, let's suit it up and let's see. Yeah. The challenge is, or at least for me, that in going into that space and in living in that space for yes, 5 years, but previous to that too, because I was a Green Beret and I had that mentality before I was even there. It just gave me the opportunity to validate it.
Absolutely.
And of course, train and get developed and stuff like that. But, I'm just saying, it wasn't like they all of a sudden said, hey, there's this thing called grit that you should learn, and we're going to sit you down and train it. Like, that was that's a new thing, right? That's Angela Duckworth. Yeah, it was like, but as an athlete, it's a thing. And so for me, one of the things that's come to the surface in a lot of like my own healing has been the toll that took, operating and spending so much time and energy, operating on this in this environment of taking life. Yeah. And it took a part of mine. And I've come to be peaceful and actually grateful for that. Sure. While recognizing it nearly cost me my life too. That's real. Yeah.
So what has been I know your wife has played a tremendous role, and what have been the components of healing in your journey? And I think that's, talk through. I mean, obviously movement's always been a big part of your life, and we can kind of hedge this into BTE, but what have been the things that have created these processes, tools, or just the environment for you to recognize and take that journey?
There's been a lot. There's been trying to do as much self-education on what is the emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, social impacts of challenging experiences that we confront in our life. Mm-hmm. And so that's led me to studying trauma, studying the nervous system, therapy, all of these different things, and eventually led to now I'm a therapist in part of what I do. But that education, that self-empowerment, so that I can just unpack and understand, like, oh, maybe there's this, maybe there's that. Without a doubt, physical movement, that's been that connection, that access to the self, which is a phenomenal tool. Journaling has been a huge help for me. Yeah. Raising that awareness and just unpacking some stuff. I'm almost 4 years not drinking alcohol. That's a big thing. Removing, thanks, man. Thank you. Removing that from the equation it doesn't fix any problems, but it gives you a chance. And I think as humans, that's what when we don't have the chance, that'll tear someone up. That'll tear someone apart.
I'm so glad that you say that, like I said, it doesn't fix the problem, but it gives you a chance. Yeah. And, obviously we live in a high indulgent, society in relation to social alcohol. Yeah. It goes together. And so there's no negative connotation in general, but when you look at the challenges that it could present, right, it's a lot of them, right? So your conclusion with that and recognizing the need to remove that element, speak to that reality. Like, even though it's your personal journey, what's your view on alcohol in light of understanding that, you know what, this sucker right here could probably cause more problems than it does solutions, but we treat it the other way around.
It's a poison. It's a poison for your brain. It's a poison for your mind, which I think there's a difference between the brain and the mind. It's a poison for your body. It's a poison that some just experience it on the physical level,
Sure.
you know, and it's just more of an optimization standpoint. Unfortunately, it usually poisons other people. And so I'm certainly not anti-alcohol.
I got you.
I have no judgment, you know, like, hey, if you want to drink, you can drink.
Sure.
But do it with honesty, you know, and if we can have that honest conversation that, yeah, hey, this has virtually zero benefit.
Yeah.
And it'll potentially cost you everything. Then the choice is yours. You know,
I love that. That's actually my conversation. I just want people to actually admit that it doesn't really have real benefits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, and I used to, I'm a purposeful. I don't know about you, but like I drank to get drunk. Like everybody else is different. Like, you know, everybody got these social. Oh, I love the taste of whiskey. Like,
you don't taste anything. It just burns.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, I'm sure it was clear that there was some that were better than others. Like, but if it didn't get me drunk, it was no purpose.
Right.
So honesty is so huge, right? Like, so that's powerful. Let me think about this, right? When I think about the different, you're a business owner, you have military, athletics, and even family, as inheriting and co-parenting some children. What has been the greatest training ground for you as a leader?
Man, that's a great question. The greatest training ground, I think, just the everyday. I don't know. I think I would love to say, hey, yeah, I learned this in sport. I learned this and that.
Sure.
But I think the culmination of all of the experiences really do provide that. Yeah, sometimes you need to be the coach that puts your arm around the shoulder, and I don't always have that. Like I don't always have that ability. I don't always have the awareness to execute that ability. The ability is there, but the awareness to do it. And so, you know, that's one thing. Certainly from a leadership standpoint, you know, you can't lead others the way you would only want to be led. That's you limiting yourself for sure. But one of the experiences that I do think is important, it's kind of to the alcohol thing, is in January I did a psychedelic retreat, psychedelic healing journey, and it's something that's still kind of being stigmatized, even though it's like gaining mainstream.
I'm having more conversations. Well, I'm hearing more conversations about it. So create the pathway. I'm gonna give you the landing strip to land the plane. What was it? And like because I'm hearing I guess you say the positive side. And I recognize there's psychedelics, mushrooms. There's a natural element.
Yeah.
So how does it become a healing agent?
For me, it brought me into contact with love. I didn't feel that before. I knew I was loved. I knew I loved people, but I don't know if I felt that at the degree of this. It also reconnected me with my spirituality. There was a void that I removed. The spirituality I removed that from my life, and I filled that void with death, with that same thing about just having this, not obsession. I don't want to come across that way, but this realistic thing of, I'm going to try to kill as many bad guys as I can. Yeah. That's just whatever. And it's never going to be enough and blah, blah, blah. And so that darkness really was such a huge part of my identity. Sure. And I did 2 compounds, ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT through a veteran organization. Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions is the name of it. Okay. And you know, they're doing amazing work. And it brought me into contact with spirituality, with my demons, with like I had this heavenly component and this hell component, and it was by far the hardest thing I've ever experienced, by far. It was incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging. The other side of it, right, is great. Yeah. But I'm still integrating from it. I'm still learning from it. And it really opens your mind. It opens your heart. It's certainly not something I think that you can just go do just without previous work, but yeah, it really was this element of love and spirituality and looking at that as a practice now to say, hey, it showed me this. Now I got to work it. It's because it's not just a magic pill.
Spirituality. So like you're one of the people even in the fitness wellness industry that actually talk about spirituality in general. Like obviously, everybody's welcome at this table. I'm a Christian. Like I do have a hard time with like nebulous things. So when you say spirituality, even in practice, what does that mean for you personally? Mm-hmm. And what is the integration of spirituality even as you're working with people in between the ears? So like for me, I'm a Christian. Obviously most people, whether they're right, wrong, mature, immature, they kind of have a connotation of what that is.
Right.
But how does that work for you?
For me, spirituality is this awareness of something bigger than me that does provide this, ubiquitous love and connection and is transcends any sort of border boundary. It is sort of this boundless connection that we have to this thing that's bigger than us. And so I really like this notion that spirituality is just this process of becoming awake and awakening and all of that. And so that's sort of what it means to me. I started, we came back, I started praying.
Excellent.
I hadn't prayed for a very, very long time. And my prayer practice, so to speak, has been that of giving thanks, not asking for things but just being thankful for this opportunity, for the struggles, for the challenges and for the people. It's I grew up in a Catholic church and never really took to that and went off my way, but have had this reconnection with it that certainly is helpful for me as I continue to go, and I think it helps me to connect to people better as well.
Sure.
So between the years, we're not talking about. We might not have direct, specific conversations about spirituality, but there's this notion of the spirit and the self and the soul and coming into contact with that thing that we can't define, but we know it.
Yeah.
We can't hold it, but we feel it.
I love it.
That's kind of a lot of what we do.
No, it's good to have the conversation. Number one, it's good that people aren't as turned off. And I think we're at the age and stage of society where there's a big old buffet spiritually, and which is good. Everybody's making personal decisions. Yeah. And what I've concluded is I want to know as much about, if you believe in God, what God do you believe in? Mm-hmm. What is he like? Mm-hmm. That's kind of like I've understood different practices, different beliefs. But is there consistency? Is there continuity in those beliefs versus our experience?
Right.
Because spiritual to me, as much as it's about the fact that this true inner self, it's also the awareness of what's invisible, right? It's the invisible world that we know transcends our visible realities that are so limitless. Yeah. So talk to me about, in light of recognizing some of those I guess you say those eternal qualities, how are you integrating all of this experience now into between the ears?
Awareness, and I think that's really the thing. And we don't dictate, we guide and we suggest and we partner with. It's a collaboration really that we're seeking to develop. And it's just like anything else. It's a practice that through paying attention to ourselves and trying to have that honest, authentic view within, we kind of say, hey, let's look at something. Let's look at what happens at the skin and within layer. Yeah. So from your body and inside, just pay attention. Turn the lights on. That's what awareness is. Just turn the lights on. Tell me what you see. Forget what the state of the furniture. If you don't like the design, no. All that stuff is subject to change. Sure. Just turn the lights on. Let me know what you see. And so we guide people along that in a physical, mental, emotional sort of way that uses movement and exercise as opportunities to get a reflection back on where they are for that day and what they need and what would a win be and how do we honor that. Sure. There's some of those days that we want to We want to, as one of our clients says, fly as close to the sun as possible and just go there. And it's just like blackout. And, you're like, what happened? You're like, I don't know, but it was awesome. And I barely survived. And right on, of course. Those are sort of those days. And then there's other days where it's like, hey, don't be here. Go for a walk in nature. Go sit, meditate, do whatever, because there's truth and there's honesty. Yeah. And that's where I think real strength is. That inner strength.
That's powerful. So it's, I always talk about my superpower as an athlete was self-awareness. Yeah. And not knowing that I had self-awareness, it was just, being able to whether it's read the room, deduct the situation, say, you know what, that guy, I feel like I'm that dude, but he's better than me right now. Just being honest with my surroundings, but not losing confidence about, what I could do or achieve. So now it sounds like, BTE is creating a culture that will enhance one's ability to actually be in tune, not just with their capacity for growth, change, and improvement, but awareness. Yeah. And which will ultimately help them even probably, I can imagine, just have a greater sense of contentment. Yeah. Because we are like a hyper, like, I think in general, like, we're a hyper condemned. Like, everybody is beating themselves up from within. Yeah. So you sound like there's some amazing, unique opportunities. Share with me, like, some of the great, some maybe a win, what a win looks like in a BTE environment. You probably alluded to it to some extent, but what's a high win? Maybe what's a low win, and what sets this training apart from just a traditional gym experience or CrossFit experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the win is this notion that people feel that they believe in themselves. And we want to develop belief, and I kind of refer to belief as truth without proof. And belief and faith can probably be used maybe interchangeably, absolutely. And so there's this, I think there's a spectrum from confidence to belief. Confidence, hey, I know I can do that. I have the proof to support that. I have the evidence. I know I can run this route. I know I can perform this maneuver. I know I can do whatever. Great. We need that. We need to develop the confidence, drill it, practice it, train it, etc. But we really need that belief that like, hey, put me in. Yeah. I'm going to, in that moment. No doubt. And I don't have any proof to support that I can or I will, but the truth is within me that, like, if given the opportunity, I'll at least step into it. And so by the practice of raising awareness of oneself and being honest and be like, yeah, today's a 40% day. It flies in the face of what a lot of society wants, which is unacceptable. Like 40% day, what's wrong with you? 100 or nothing.
You're regressing.
And it's like, hey, to me, it's a sign of strength if someone says it's a 40% day. I'm gonna do 40 I'm gonna match that, at least from like a workout standpoint. Sure. Because if you're trying to do an 80%, like let's just say you're trying to do an 8 out of 10 workout. Yeah. And you're at a 4 out of 10. Well, now you've just increased your risk for injury. You've probably not extracted the benefit from a strength and conditioning standpoint that is going to be what's required at an 8 out of 10, heavy sets, this and that, right? Yeah. And you've just basically lied to yourself. Because it's not
the biggest betrayal.
And that's it, right? And it's like, so by giving people the workout is just the excuse to check in. It's the reflection, right? It's a mirror and a window. It's a mirror in that it reflects back to you the honesty of where we're at today.
This is good.
And it's a window that you can look into yourself and then express and sort of, put out there what you need in that moment for that day.
Man, listen, I hope everybody is really following what he's saying, because the workout is just a check-in. It's really about being in tune with the opportunity, recognizing what you're building internally. Yeah. Right? It's basically the physical is preceding those internal, intrinsic attributes that cause us to thrive. All right, so clearly Between Ears Fitness is just 100% comprehensive. You're embracing every area of the human experience to add value to the clients. But, so I'm listening to your journey comprehensively, and then I got to think back to now where we are today in our current state of society. Mental health is a real thing. Like when I say I was out of my mind, 2004, I get arrested on marijuana possession. My world changes. I come to Christ. It's like just everything happens at the same time. I'm a new guy on Christ. I'm on fire. Next thing you know, I'm hearing voices in my head. So when I say I lost it, I lost it. I was in a hospital, psychosis. So I'm very, very sensitive to the realities of mental health, not just conditions, but realities. Yeah. People having real experiences.
Yes.
So now, but we're also at a state today where everything is a mental health condition. Everyone is offended about everything. So we're ultra sensitive, which invites a lot of weakness. Yeah. And I can imagine with you with a little bit of a military mindset, you can only think about how the enemy, could look at our state of culture. So talk to me. You're coming out of being hardened, going through this massive, just discovery, healing, etc. Yeah. But the masses are to the point where we're like Jello. So talk to me. I don't like the word balance, me personally, but talk to me about what is the experience, what is the sweet spot, where are we at from this whole idea of mental, that idea of hardening, but also being human.
I personally think we could do better with our choice of words. Okay. Because I like to use the term mental fitness.
It's good.
If you were to think about fitness, all right, let's just say we want to be strong, but not the strongest. We want to be fast. We don't have to be the fastest. We want to be conditioned, but we don't have to go forever. We want these different areas of fitness.
Yeah.
Well, we need the same at the mental, emotional level too.
Sure.
If we are unable to tolerate the slightest discomforts, that is fundamentally a definition of weakness, right? A lack of tolerance in something that's opposing against you. So we wouldn't want to be weak if we're fit, right? Like, hey, if you try to pick up 20 pounds and you break, one could make the argument that you're probably not fit. You might be able to run.
Sure.
Likewise, if you could pick up 500 pounds, but you can't, walking up the stairs so we want to balance across these things. And so from a mental health or mental fitness standpoint, we need that resiliency. We need that ability to tolerate.
There you go.
And in order to build our tolerance, we need to expose ourselves to things that we don't exactly like.
That's good.
If you get stronger, you don't get stronger by exposing yourselves to weaker weights.
There you go.
Or lighter weights. It's a progression. There's a system to this. There's mental health, there's therapeutic interventions like that do exposure training and whatnot. But it's a shame. It is a shame to me because we are too much safety at a certain point becomes dangerous.
There you go.
And I think that's the direction we're going down.
Yeah.
And it's like if all we do is avoid,
there you go,
then we don't give ourselves the exposure, the opportunity for that exposure to build the tolerance and therefore to build the fitness. Now, of course, if you're just shut down and you're just a hard shell and nothing gets in, that's not really, because then you're not going to be able to connect to people. 100%. You're not going to have that experience, and so I feel like if we view it as a fitness component,
that's a good.
Maybe we can.
I love the way you said it because I'm big on language as well. I mean, like I literally listen through language because I'm one of these guys like words have meaning, right?
Yeah.
And just the wrong use of words can send someone in a total different direction. Even like the correction that you made, which is valid. It's like hardening, but no, we want to be fit or we want to be well. We want to be whole. Right. When I think about this whole idea of what my goals are as a human, not just as an athlete, not just as a high performer, I want to be whole in every area of my life. Meaning and so what the goal, the optimal goal is I'm recognizing that there's deficiencies.
Yeah.
Right. And through my active participation and pursuit of healing, education, insight, there's these growth opportunities so long as I can create through relationships, practices, disciplines, etc. And then the goal is to be whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lifelong pursuit. We're going to continue to discover more about ourselves and really figure out what's going on between the years.
There
right?
we go. Yeah.
All right, so you gotta tell us where we can find you and ultimately, and you got some specialties like I can't let you off the hook without talking about these little these I don't even want to call them torture tactics, but I just can't see them any other way. So tell us where we can find more about BTE and just talk about at least one of some unique experiences that you create.
For sure. So Instagram for now probably is the best place to take a look at it's like if you were to go to a restaurant, take a peek at the menu, like what do they got? I don't know what I'm going to order, but what kind of food they serving? So my name, Bill Anthes, my wife's name, Cariana, spelled with an E. So you were right with that weird thing, Cariana Anthes. And then between the ears, spelled BTWN, the ears. We also have between the ears fitness, which is the gym. Between the ears is kind of the umbrella thing. And we do these experiences. And there's the Between the Ears Fitness, which is like, hey, the daily practice of, checking in, raising awareness, driving action. We're looking at predominantly through the gym. Sure. And then there's this like underground kind of situation we've got going on.
This Fight Club vibe.
Yeah, a little bit. And those have kind of been referred to as psychedelic experience like things. And there's a lot of truth to that, having gone through a pretty powerful one. And and really all that means is coming sort of raising awareness about the psyche, the mind, how we're doing different things.
Got it.
And we use movement, we use physical challenges as same thing as the access to this notion of the self, notion of kind of this wholeness by identifying perhaps what is deficient or what is lacking. Or we have this one challenge. It's called the Sisyphus Gauntlet. So the story of Sisyphus.
That's the one.
That's the one. And it's been really amazing to see how however many people have done it have all had something unique. And there's been a thread line throughout it all, which is this deep access to not just who they are, but who they can become. And so, the story, the myth of Sisyphus is he's banished to Hades, hell, the underworld, pushing this boulder up a hill. And when he gets to the top of this mountain, the thing falls back down and goes to the base. He goes, marches himself back. And so he's just in eternity pushing this thing. You're like, ooh, that's some heavy stuff. And so you can look at that as saying, or at least the way we tell this story, and a story is how we've passed down information across millions and thousands of years in culture, right? You can look at that and say, look, this is like, you're just doomed. Why even bother pushing it up? And you can have an apathetic, nihilistic, just blah, nothing meaning. Yeah. Or you can look at it and say, it's not so much that this is gonna be hard and suffer, and I know how it's probably gonna end, but I'm choosing instead to make meaning out of this. And not like, oh, I hope I find the meaning in it. No, I'm making the meaning out of it. Even though we know that, you're going to get to the top of that thing and that thing's going to roll back down. But can you embrace that with this meaningful, purposeful, active involvement in your experience? So we have 4 workouts that are an hour long, super simple, varying degrees of challenge that have a corresponding, kind of mindset, a concept to them, a journal practice. And if you're willing, they'll bring you to places that can be pretty cool.
Bro, that's a whole bar. So, now you get back to the meat. That's kind of my language, because when you have a moment, people easily connect the moment, the achievement from the meaning. Yeah. And it sounds, you're creating these immersive experiences where people can be present and connect. That's what Catch the Moment is all about. It's about connecting that meaning to the moment so that people can, really recognize their true sense of self and value as they're moving on toward that next moment. Yeah. And next experience. Bill Anthes, you are a gem. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for having
blessing me with forever bars. I hope y'all really locked in on what Bill had to say. Not just with oh my goodness, Bill, how do I say this? the gauntlet. Like, what is
Sisyphus?
The Sisyphus. All right, that's real. I'm not even going to sit there and act like that. I want to say Sisyphus again. I'm like, I'm like, not just with the Sisyphus gauntlet, but there's a unique opportunity with between the ears, with the experience that Bill has through his own life that speaks 100% to me, but it speaks to every single one of us on how we're growing, how we're healing, and ultimately how we're finding meaning and truth in the human experience. And I'm telling you what, this is something that everybody wants to participate in. Bro, Kev, thank you again for coming through. And make sure y'all check in with us and catch the moment. Find us everywhere: Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, where you want, every platform, even on iHeart. Find us, man. Because this is where impact is happening. We will catch you next week. Get ready for another drop.